Welcome to The Bo Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. I'm here in Orlando at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, where faith leaders connect with faith communities. I was able to speak with two individuals who have court cases going all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, involving free speech, free expression, and how that squares with LGBTQ discrimination. Jack Phillips is the owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop. He didn't want to make a cake for a gay couple in Colorado, and he got sued, but he won his case on religious grounds, as Colorado had targeted his faith. But now he faces another challenge from a trans lawyer who wanted him to make a cake celebrating her gender transition. He argues once again that he shouldn't have his art, which is his speech, to be compelled. Here's Jack Phillips and his attorney, John Scruggs. Well, Jack, John, thank you so much for being here with me. Jack, your case goes back about 10 years ago, I believe, when you didn't want to make a cake that went against your beliefs. You won your case on free speech grounds, but the fight didn't end there. What happened next?
So the fight didn't end there because the same day that, the day that the U.S. Supreme Court granted our case, we got a call from an attorney in Colorado saying that wanted a cake that was blue on the outside and pink on the inside, and we were told that those colors were symbolic of a sex change, changing from a man to a woman. So we told this attorney that we would gladly create other custom cakes, but we couldn't create that one because it expressed a message we didn't want to create. And so that attorney filed a complaint with the state, and the state sued us the second time. So we won at the U.S. Supreme Court, go back to this court again with the state, and then they dismissed the charge. But the same attorney is now suing us in a civil lawsuit, and so we're in our third case.
Goodness gracious. Well, and that's Autumn Scardina, correct? That's who we're talking about. So Autumn Scardina is transgender and wanted a cake that was both pink and blue, right? That's what you just mentioned. And you were prepared to make it until Scardina told you that it was to celebrate her gender transition, which you obviously didn't agree with. So it sounds like it was premeditated, right? I mean, she could have gone to any cake maker in Colorado, correct?
Yeah, and we were also told in our most recent case, the trial, by Scardina, that if I win the case, I'd get a call the next day with another cake, and we'd start all over again. And these cases are designed to correct the errors of my thinking.
So it's targeted, you believe?
This is targeted.
John, Scardina said that she wanted to challenge the veracity of whether Jack would actually serve LGBTQ customers. And so where's the balance between Jack's right to speech through his artistry and a protection against discrimination against sexual orientation?
Yeah, it's an easy line. It's about the what, not the who. So Jack does serve everyone. He offered Autumn Scardina to other cakes and items, but just couldn't express a message that Jack disagreed with. And that principle should protect everyone. It should protect the LGBT artist. It should protect the Muslim artist, right? The government shouldn't be forcing anyone to say or speak a message they disagree with. So that's the line. It's an easy line to draw, and we're hopeful the courts will draw that line in the future to protect Jack and our other client.
You know, it's interesting, John. We go back a ways, actually back to Memphis, and you know probably that I'm a singer. And back in November, I was scheduled to sing for the Florida Panthers, the NHL team. And I've been booked since January. And then 2 weeks before I ended up singing, I got a message from their game day office saying, we need to change you out to replace you because it's Pride Night. So my sexuality, and my view, was being discriminated against just because I was straight, because they wanted a gay singer for Pride Night. So, John, my question for you is, my art is singing, Jack's is baking cakes. Should we be able to use our talent without compelling our art?
I think that's exactly right. And even in Jack's first cakes, there were other cake bakers and other cake designers who were allowed to decline to create cakes that criticize same-sex marriage, right? And the Colorado Commission allowed that. But they singled out Jack and said, hey, Jack, because of your beliefs, we are going to compel you. That doesn't make any sense. Why single out people of faith or particular views, right? The First Amendment applies to everybody. It protects everybody, and it should protect everyone equally.
Well, if Jack were a Jewish or a Muslim baker and a couple wanted bacon on their cake, I'm sure you guys have considered this, and the cake maker refused because of religious reasons, is that along the lines of what you're fighting for?
I think that's exactly right, in the sense of, as long as it's a message about the what and not the who, right? As long as someone is serving people regardless of who comes in the door and just says, hey, I have a cross-the-line rule that says I can't promote certain messages for anyone. You know, Jack wouldn't create certain cakes for anyone no matter who asked. And that's the line that the court should draw and that we've argued. And it's a common sense line that just makes sense.
How are you feeling where the justices' heads are right now?
We feel good. Oral argument is on December, and we expect a ruling in Lori Smith's case.
Yeah, any day now, right?
Any day by the end of June, and we're hopeful. And we're hopeful that a win in her case will protect Jack, protect other artists across the country, and really protect all Americans.
Jack, do you feel that you've been targeted as a result of your initial Supreme Court win by this latest case?
Yeah, and that was admitted in court. You know, like I said, if I win this case, we'll get a call the next day with another cake. And this attorney also asked us to create a cake of Satan smoking marijuana, trying to find a way to trip us and trap us. Also, right at the beginning, 2 weeks after this started in July of 2012, we were getting emails from this attorney in Colorado. So this is definitely targeted.
Outside of just the legal challenges, though, since you're in Colorado, which I've lived in before, have you been targeted personally? Do you get threatening messages? Do people treat you differently or poorly?
We've gotten, like, a lot of hate mail. I had a death threat that came right away. A man called me up, said he's on his way to the shop. He had a gun, and he's going to blow my head off. And I felt it was serious enough to call the police and have them intervene. And the man kept calling and saying, you know, what street he was on and when he was going to arrive. And, you know, my daughter was there at the time with my 4-year-old granddaughter. I had them go stay in the back of the shop till the police came to straighten it out. Other hateful, threatening calls, lots of them. So.
But you still feel good about where you are, and you're going to continue making cakes.
Yeah, and on the other side, though, we had a man testify on our behalf in this case, a former gay activist who came in to see who this man is who won't make cakes for gays. We found out it's not that I won't make cakes for gays. I won't make these certain cakes with messages, and he's become a good friend, and I made lots of cakes for him and served him. And so he testified on our behalf in the court, and he also went through deposition on our behalf.
So he may be one example, but John, why do you think it is that there are many in this, let's say, the LGBTQ community who cannot see this as Jack's right to speech through his artistry?
Well, I think a lot of activists are just, you know, saying false messages out there and confusing people. But if you just get the basic principles right and the basic facts, I think it makes sense. It's like we were talking about, hey, it's not about who walks in the door, it's about what is being asked. And that's an artistic freedom that really goes to the core of what artists do, right? Artists select, every artist and every, you know, creative person selects projects based on whether they're consistent with their values or not, right? And that's just common sense. You can't promote every value that, you know, you agree with or disagree with. You're selective, and that's what Jack does. He bases it off the message conveyed, not the person requesting the message. So I think it's really kind of confusion about what the facts of the case are and what the issues are.
Well, I know since the High Court didn't rule on the broader issue of whether a business can refuse a service based on religious reasons, you know, do you think that they may make a broader ruling this time around?
I think so. In fact, the Supreme Court, in the case you're talking about, didn't accept the free exercise question. They only accepted the free speech question, which is the broader issue, which they left unaddressed in Jack's case. And that's why we're so hopeful that they are going to issue a broad ruling that protects artists, protects Americans, and even, you know, protects people that oppose Jack. Jack is fighting for their freedoms too, because these principles should protect everybody.
Do you think they'll come around and that the overall fever pitch of the country will come to understand Jack's case as that, as an exercise of speech and expression? I'm
hopeful. After listening to the oral arguments, the justices had really good questions, really insightful questions. One question, again, even George...
Give me an example of a question they asked.
Yeah, Justice Gorsuch, I think, did a great example and particularly asked the Department of Justice, the Biden administration, asked the state of Colorado, well, look, isn't this about not the who, but the what? You know, accepting that framing, which is so important. Justice Kavanaugh talked about wasn't like a publishing house. You know, publishing houses select books based on their content, and they have that right, just like newspapers do. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's about the content that someone is asked to promote, not about who's coming in the door.
Well, Jack, John, thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck to you on the case, and I guess we'll be hearing soon from you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Another case that just heard oral arguments in the U.S. Supreme Court is that of Lori Smith, owner of 303 Creative. She wants to design custom wedding websites, but not ones that don't align with her Christian faith. Similar to Jack Phillips, she's being targeted for her desire to use her art to express her religious beliefs. So she faces Colorado's exact same law that says that she is discriminating. Here's my chat with Lori Smith. Well, Lori Smith and Kelly Fedoric, thank you so much for being with me today. Lori, you're the owner of the graphic design firm 303 Creative in Colorado, and you wanted to expand into custom weddings, but you oppose same-sex marriage. So you wanted to post a message about why you didn't support it, apparently, which violates Colorado's anti-discrimination law. Your argument is that this is your free speech, correct?
not only my free speech, but for the free speech of each and every one of us. So yes, I'm a graphic designer, a custom graphic designer. I create custom graphics and websites, and I want to create consistent with my faith. And Colorado won't let me do that. Colorado is forcing me to communicate messages that go against my beliefs, and it's just simply not right. Through my business, I work with people from all walks of life. I have clients who identify as LGBT, but I cannot create every message that's requested of me. So at the stake in my case is everyone's right to create consistent with what they believe. Whether your views on marriage are similar or different, everyone must be free to speak and communicate and share ideas without the threat of unjust government punishment.
And Kelly, the case's oral arguments were heard in December in the Supreme Court. How do you think that went, and where do you think the justices' heads are right now?
I think arguments went very well. We felt like they were very receptive to our argument that free speech is for everyone. The Supreme Court has never said or allowed the government to compel anyone's speech of artists. So we're very hopeful, very optimistic, as they seem just very uncomfortable with this argument that Colorado made, which is they have the right to censor Lori's speech. What's really interesting about Lori's case is that Colorado agrees that Lori serves everyone regardless of who they are, and that everything she creates is custom expression, it is speech. But what's staggering and terrifying is that they think they have the right to come in and dictate what you can say and what you can't say. And so we're very optimistic, very hopeful that the court will give a very strong ruling upholding free speech for all Americans.
So it's really more a case not about her discriminating against the clients. You said you do have LGBTQ clients. It's about them compelling the speech of what she can and can't say as a business provider.
Absolutely. She serves everyone regardless of who they are, including those who identify as LGBT. For her, it's always about the message that the person is requesting. It's never about the person who's requesting it. And so it's all about speech. It's all about expression, and whether the government can tell us what to say or what to believe. And this should terrify all of us, regardless of what side of the issue we're on, because if the government can censor Lori, it then has the power to censor anyone else in the United States.
So Kelly, do you feel that her case is more about an attack on free speech rather than a protection against discrimination?
It's absolutely all about free speech, and free speech is essential to a flourishing and pluralistic society. It's a basic human right, and there's a lot on the line here for the freedom of speech.
So Lori, you know, just if you flip the script, and I'm sure you guys have played these scenarios out, but if you won this current case, would it be fair for, like, let's say Publix or Walmart to also post a message on their website saying they don't believe in Christianity, so they refuse to serve Christians?
I actually think that's a question for my attorney.
For you,
so
Kelly.
I can take that question. Well, everyone in America has the right to speak freely. The First Amendment, the promise of the First Amendment says that we as citizens cannot be compelled by the government to say something we don't believe or to be silent. That they can't compel us to speak, they can't force us to remain silent. And what we're talking about here is custom expression. So Lori, the other artists that we represent, Jack Phillips, who I know you're going to talk to a little later today, they are all engaged in custom expression and custom design. And when you're engaged in that, that's speech. That's protected under the First Amendment. And it's because of that the government can't compel it. It can't violate it.
So I'm sure your fight is to be able to speak freely and design for those of similar faith. In the same way, I mean, would there be a problem with, let's say, a gay-only business, or would you say, well, I have choices so I can choose to go wherever I want to?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I have clients who identify as LGBT.
Yeah.
I serve everyone. When I'm asked to create custom speech, we're not talking about plug-and-play websites or template websites. We're talking about custom speech, unique, one-of-a-kind pieces. So when I'm considering a project, I'm always looking at the message or messages I'm being asked to create for. And for me, it's never about the individual requesting the work, but the messages that I'm being asked to create. And there are some messages I can't create no matter who requests them.
Would you go to a client and say, Colorado doesn't want you to say to them what your personal feelings are? Is that accurate? About faith and about your faith. Like, they don't want you to communicate how you feel about a particular issue about them being LGBTQ, even though you have those clients.
Well, the state of Colorado has said you cannot create consistent with your faith. So that should be concerning to all of us, whether you have faith or no faith at all. If the government is trying to approve which messages you are to communicate, that should be concerning to each of us, regardless of what your views are on marriage or other topics.
Kelly, how recent has this law been in effect, and how many businesses has it affected, do you think?
Well, it's hard to say how many it has affected. It's been in place now for over a decade in Colorado. Jack was the first victim of the law as Colorado used the law to go after him. He's now facing his third lawsuit. And Lori saw that. She witnessed that kind of discrimination happening against Jack and was fearful for her own speech, her own rights, and that of others. And so courageously chose to stand up against this law and to sue Colorado. And really challenging unjust laws is a hallmark of civil rights litigation. And so we're so thankful that she stood, and I would expect all Coloradans are grateful for her stand because she's standing for their free speech as well.
Has Governor Polis weighed in on this at all?
You know, it's really sad. Both the governor and the Attorney General of Colorado have very much advocated that they should have the right to censor people's speech, that they should violate people's freedoms. And it's unconstitutional. It violates the First Amendment. And we're very hopeful that the Supreme Court will let Colorado know once and for all that this kind of action against its own citizens is unlawful and not acceptable in the United States of America.
Well, the LGBT community can sometimes be retaliatory, I've noticed, and I'm just curious, historically speaking, I mean, if you win, do you expect them to fight back and attack the way they've come after Jack as well, or do you think there'll be more harassment of you and other Christians?
Well, it's interesting. What we've actually seen from a lot of the amicus briefs filed in Lori's case is that a lot of those who identify as LGBT are supporting her stand because they know that civil liberties travel together and freedom is in the balance. And if they want the freedom to create consistent with their beliefs, if they don't want to be forced by the government to criticize same-sex marriage, that they should support Lori's freedom as well, because we're all in this together. And what's also interesting is that many states are able to enforce laws like Colorado perfectly well and let them coexist with the First Amendment. So what Colorado is doing is really outside the mainstream. Public accommodation laws and the First Amendment should be able to coexist together. Colorado is just failing to do that.
Yeah, why is Colorado kind of an outlier in this particular type of legislation?
You know, it's hard to say. I think Colorado and other governments, including the state of New York, for example, where we represent another artist, they are failing their citizens when it comes to free speech. They are more concerned about violating First Amendment freedoms than protecting the freedoms of all Americans, which is their duty. It's their duty under the Constitution. So it's really unfortunate. It doesn't need to be that way, but we're seeing increasingly support for Lori by people on both sides of the aisle, which is really ultimately what America is all about, right? It's supposed to be peaceful, pluralistic, where we all are able to come around that table in public life and debate and dialogue with respect and with civility. And
Lori, just my final question for you is, how are you feeling right now with everything? Are you energized by the activity within the Supreme Court? Are you energized to continue in your business and creating custom websites that align with your faith?
I am. I am still looking forward to a decision, which we will have any day now. And I look forward to the day when hopefully we can celebrate, all of us, that we can all speak freely, consistently with our beliefs, whether they're the same as mine or different, but to be able to do that without fearing government punishment like I've endured for the last now almost 7 years.
So a key victory for you is really a key victory for every American in this country.
Absolutely. The right to speak freely is worthy of protecting. A win for me is a win for you and everyone else in America.
Well, best of luck to you, Lori. And Kelly, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your thoughts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.